Hey, how's everybody doing tonight? My name's James. I'm with Revolution Prep. I'm really excited to be here for the PSAT score back night. I just want to take a moment to thank everyone for having me, Principal Arachiga and Santa Monica Academy. I'm really excited to be here tonight to talk to you guys about the PSAT, the SAT, the ACT, interpreting your results, and the entire college admissions application process. Like I said, my name is James. I am originally from Cincinnati, Ohio, and I work for Revolution Prep. We're the largest on-campus test prep provider in the United States right now. I work as a program advisor where every day I get to help students pick out plans, whether it be tutoring or group courses or finding the best possible fit for them so that they can prepare for the SAT or ACT, and most importantly, get into the college of their dreams. So that's where I get all my satisfaction. It's very fun to be able to help kids get into their colleges, and that's really colleges of their dreams, and that's really why I'm here to talk to you guys tonight. Let's talk about what we're covering, or a little bit more about me. I graduated from Xavier University in Cincinnati, Ohio, back in December of 2011 with a degree in history, and now I work for Revolution Prep. So what we'll cover tonight, we'll cover why testing matters, why we're all here, why these standardized tests will now be part of your lives, sophomore, junior, senior year in high school, and why they matter. We'll also talk about why you're all here, again, interpreting the PSAT results. We'll take a look at these numbers and see exactly where everybody stands on a national level. We'll talk more about how you transition from the PSAT to the SAT and the ACT. We'll talk about subject tests and AP tests as well. But first, let's talk about why testing matters in a much kind of a bigger frame. When you apply to college, your admissions profile, 50% of that is going to be your GPA. The classes you've taken, what you've done in high school, the rigor of your classes, all of that. 50% will be your GPA. How often, what is the average that a high school student spends by the time they graduate? How many hours do you think they'd spend on their GPA? It's a tough question, I know. It's about 8,000 hours. So for 50% of your college admissions profile, you're pouring in 8,000 hours of work if you're doing it, and that's great, that's fantastic. Another 20% is your extracurricular activities, whether it be sports, clubs, anything you do, work, that's 20%. How often, what is the average number of hours that a student will spend on his extracurricular activities in high school? Okay, it's about 1,000 hours. So 8,000 for the GPA, which is 50%, 1,000 for extracurriculars, which is 20%, and that remaining 30% is your SAT or ACT score. Now, how many hours does a high schooler spend preparing for the SAT or the ACT, would you say? It's actually much lower. We found it's about 10 hours, which equates to taking a couple practice tests or maybe sitting down with a tutor and looking over some basic strategies. So for that 30% of your college admissions profile, people are only spending 10 hours. And that's what's a little bit troubling because it's such a big portion of your college admissions profile. By the time you're a junior and by the time you're a senior, your GPA has pretty much already been set in stone. You can of course raise it a little bit your junior and senior year, but you're pretty much set in stone on your GPA, whether it's when you're taking AP classes, honors, that number is pretty much set. Fluctuate a little, but not by much. Your extracurriculars, you've either been involved in them by the time you're a junior and senior, or you haven't. So those are pretty much set in stone as well. The 30% that you can really make the biggest impact on in terms of boosting your potential to get to your best college is the SAT or the ACT. And that's why I'm here to talk with you tonight. So on average, people are only spending 10 hours to prepare for these tests, and it's 30% of their college admissions profile. So let's move on and talk about what exactly the PSAT is, which is, of course, what you guys just took a couple weeks ago. The PSAT, you get the P from practice, it's just a practice SAT. It's a great introduction into the standardized test for any kid that's in high school. So if you're a sophomore and you just took it, fantastic. You now get to see kind of what the standardized test looks like, what it feels like to be in a proctored environment. You get to see what kind of test taker you are, how you felt at the end of it, and it's your first exposure to standardized tests. If you're a junior, it can count for a little bit more because you can be a National Merit Scholar if you score high enough. If you score in the top percentile, then you will be recruited by colleges and potentially earn some great scholarship money. Also for juniors, it's a great introductory to the PSAT because you're going to have to take the SAT or the ACT. So it's just a great time to figure out what kind of test taker you are. Do you get tired at the end? Do you need to build your endurance? Do you struggle with critical reading questions? Are you more attuned to the math sections? It's a great chance to let everyone know exactly where they stand. So let's talk about basically the format of the PSAT. It's a 2-hour and 10-minute test. It's broken into 5 sections, and they're broken into critical reading, writing, and math. There is two critical reading sections that are 25 minutes long, 2 math sections that are 25 minutes long, and a writing section that's 30 minutes long. You guys probably felt like you were there for a little over 2.5 hours with breaks and everything, which is much longer than any test you've taken. Has anybody ever taken a 2.5-hour test before? So how did you guys feel? Probably a little tired, and that's to be expected. That's why it's very important to get exposure to these kind of tests. You see that in order to be successful in these types of tests, you really need to build endurance. So with the five sections moving forward, please take out your section scores so you can all look at our scores. And you pull that out now. It's a big piece of paper you're getting here handed in. So I'm going to pull that out. And you'll see at the top there's 3 numbers. So there's a critical reading, a math, and a writing number underneath. I'll use my sample as an example. So a 50 in critical reading, a 52 in math, and a 44 in writing. That means of the 3 sections, you scored a 50 in critical reading, a 52 in math, and a 44 in writing. That equates to a 146 overall. Each section is scored out of 80 points, so 0 to 80 points. So 50 is pretty much middle of the road. The total score combined, the highest score you could possibly get is a 240 on the PSAT. So this example we got is a 146 out of 240, which is pretty average for anyone who's taking a test. And if you look underneath that, you'll see a score range. And what that score range means is that it will tell you, if you were to take this PSAT, let's say, a month, 2 months from now, without doing any type of preparation whatsoever, this is the score range that you would fall under. You would probably score either a little bit higher or a little bit lower. You might get a few questions right here or there, but it will pretty much stay in the same range. Let's move on to total score index, if you'll look at that. You'll see your total score, like I said, the 146 is the composite. So you add all 3 sections together to get your composite score, and that's your selection index. If you look underneath that, you'll see the percentile. And for the example we're using, it's the 47th percentile. So that basically means what percent of college-bound juniors in your state did you score higher than? So 47% of kids that took this, you scored higher than. And to translate a PSAT score to an SAT score, you simply add a 0. So if this person got a 146 on the PSAT, you can probably think that if they were to take the SAT down the line without any preparation, they would get about 1460. It's a rough estimation, but it's an estimation that we can make. And if you also turn and look at your skills breakdown, this will really break down and show you what you struggled with on the test, whether it be the curriculum in critical reading, whether it be curriculum in math. It really breaks down and assesses your skills and gives you kind of a format to look, I really struggled in this section, I really struggled in this section, and will make you more aware of what you need to prep on going forward. Now let's talk about going from the PSAT to the SAT, because that's a pretty big jump. The PSAT is only like we said, 2 hours and 10 minutes long. The SAT is 3 hours and 45 minutes long. It's going to deal with much tougher curriculum, harder curriculum, and it'll be a little bit more trickier. 95% of the same type of content on both of the tests, so the content will be pretty much the same. It'll be the way that it's presented to you. It'll be a little bit trickier in the SAT, also because it's much longer. The SAT is slightly harder, like I said. It has a 25-minute essay, which is different than the PSAT. As you guys recall, you guys did not take an essay, write an essay when you took the PSAT. And the SAT, like I said, is much longer. The SAT reasoning test is comprised basically of math, writing, and critical reading as well. It's devoted into 9 different sections, though, as opposed to the PSAT, which is strictly only 3 sections. The SAT scoring, like I said, math, critical reading, and writing, and it's scored from 200 to 800, as opposed to the 20 to 80 in the PSAT. The national average is roughly 500 on each section, so the national average is roughly 1,500 on the SAT. If we want to start talking about how exactly it's scored, there's 1 raw score point gained for each correct answer. So if you get a correct answer right, you get a point. If you answer a question wrong, you are subtracted 1/4 of a point. So we'll talk more about strategy later on, but we're just getting into the basics. And there's no penalty or gain for omitting questions. So if you leave a question blank, you will not get penalized for that. We can talk about that more in depth later. Let's talk a little bit about the ACT, the other standardized test. The ACT has 4 sections: English, reading, math, and science, as well as an optional essay. We would always suggest that you do write the optional essay, but on the ACT it's optional. Each section is scored on a scale from 1 to 36, and the national average is roughly at 21. So the national average on SAT is 1,500, national average on ACT is about a 21. The total time on the ACT is 2 hours and 55 minutes. If you write the essay, it's 3 hours and 25 minutes. It's a 30-minute essay. It's 35 minutes for science, it's 45 minutes for English, it's 60 minutes for math, and then the reading section as well.